bags and running. I haven't been sparring. I haven't been in the ring with anybody. So that was the hard part to try to get back. You do lose your time and your distance, the small little kind of feel aspect that you have, no matter what sport you're playing. You need to be doing it. And I was just lacking that little bit. But look, thankfully it all came together.
So you beat Fhuaylan Rahil at the National Stadium, unanimous decision, cruiserweight title, your 8th national title. Across these 4 years, so as I mentioned, 2019, you're thinking about turning pro, and then COVID happens and that goes by the wayside. So clearly across these 4 years, you're still watching the sport very closely and thinking about getting in. And yet, as I understand it, it's more of a whim, really. This has come about, this national title.
Yeah. I mean, look, obviously you're looking in, I suppose there's always a little bit of an itch there. But you're looking in the last few years and thinking, God, I think I'd have had enough to compete there at that level, But, this year then I just said, nothing's been happening for the last year or two. So I just said this year, let's go for it, while I'm still able. My dad agreed, we did a pad session. I think it was the week before the league started. And it was just off the back of that we actually decided to go. And thankfully it worked out.
Must have been a good pad session.
Yeah. Well, look, he's such high intensity with me. But I suppose we were sharp enough. And as I say, I do keep training. So I was in relatively good shape. And it was just getting that sharpness back and getting the boxing brain back and getting back to, I suppose, remembering the things that you used to do that made you successful, and it worked out.
And had you actually retired 4 years ago after your last fight? Did you say, I'm done now?
Well, I never said I retired, but I suppose I had stepped away. Life changes. I have a house now, mortgages. I just got married there 2 months back. So life does change, and you kind of have to change with it. But the dream, I suppose, is still there. As I said, the itch is still there, and you'd love to be doing it all your life, but you just can't.
And how was your fitness then? I know you said you had kept yourself reasonably fit. Given that you kind of sign up for the national championships maybe a week out, that's still a bit of a jump.
Yeah, it's a fair bit of a jump. Look, thankfully, I have been training quite hard. And as I say, I do keep myself in decent shape. So, I was plenty fit enough to get through it. And, both fights I had, I kind of took the foot off the gas a little bit in the last round because I kind of knew I had it at that stage. So, if I needed more, I still had more to give,
I presume your first fight, an elite fight back in the ring, must be a little bit surreal and must, as you alluded to, take a while to almost just rediscover your bearings. It must cross your mind at a certain point. She's like, I can't believe I'm in here doing this again.
Yeah, a little bit like that, all right. I suppose, I think even my brother had said, put up on Facebook or something, he says, nobody was expecting to see us here again, and they weren't. And I suppose I wasn't even expecting to see myself there again. But I suppose there is obviously, as you say, that kind of feel aspect. You're missing a little bit of time in our distance or something that's just slightly off. But at the same time, when you step into the ring and the bell goes, it's just, I know people often ask me, do you be nervous before fights and stuff? And I generally say, no, I'm not. My wife would tell you, you couldn't talk to me the morning of a fight. I'd be a little bit on edge that day. And you would be, I suppose, a little bit of not anxiety, but, just pre-bout kind of excitement, or I suppose a little bit of anxious about it or something like that. But when you get back to the ring or back to the dressing room, you just feel like, oh, I'm home. So you've done it all your life. So it was lovely feeling just to get back in and pull the boots on again, and trying to find the boots was the hard part. Because I hadn't used them so long. So just there was that familiar feeling that when you got back to the dressing room and back into the ring. So it was lovely to have that again.
36 is very different to 32 as a sports person. Did you find your reflexes had slowed down at all?
No, I don't think so. I suppose people be raving at you, age is only a number, but as I say, I try to keep myself in good shape. And I suppose I did rely a little bit on my experience, I suppose. But yeah, I don't think my reflexes are gone too slow. But I suppose with it being a new weight, my last 3 titles have been on heavyweight. the guys were that little bit bigger, and being a bit bigger, they're probably that little bit slower. So I suppose it was going to be a little bit of a higher tempo and maybe faster punches. But I felt quite comfortable in there. And I felt my reactions weren't too bad. As I said, I did get caught a few silly shots, but that's, I suppose, mainly down to being out of the ring and lack of competition.
Yeah, no, clearly they weren't too bad. I mean, you're national champion, so it's absolutely amazing. Because I just asked because I think anyone, myself included at times, who's had the experience of being away from sport for a couple of years or from their chosen sport, and then they find themselves back in it. You can find yourself in certain circumstances, depends on the sport, be it football or boxing, but certain moments where your brain recognises what's supposed to happen now and tells your body to do it, and then your brain makes the shocking discovery that your body is not the same as it was, and your brain almost has to reassess what's possible here.
Yeah. No, thankfully I was okay in that sense.
Good.
I say I did get caught one or two silly shots that I generally wouldn't have back in the day, but I suppose that, as I said, that's just, I suppose, because I hadn't been in the ring, hadn't been sparring, and a bag isn't going to hit your back, so you can throw whatever you want on the bag and stand there after, you're not going to get hit back. So, I was trying to get the brain back into action again and remember that once I throw my punches, I have to actually remember there's something coming back at me. So get your head off the centre or get back out the distance. But thankfully I didn't get caught too mad.
Do you have to become battle hardened in boxing when it comes to taking punches?
Well, I suppose the objective is not to take punches. First and foremost, it is called is a sport of self-defense.
Yeah.
But I mean, I never really think about it.
But when you took a punch, did you find, oh God, haven't felt that in a while? Whereas maybe 4 years ago you wouldn't have blinked twice.
No, I didn't. I suppose it's probably natural for me at this stage. You're used to getting hit, or I didn't think about it. Thankfully, I didn't take too many punches, so that was probably helping as well. But I didn't. There wasn't a rude awakening or anything in that sense. It's just part and parcel of the game. And I suppose you're so focused on what you're trying to do, you're not actually thinking, oh Christ, I actually got hit there, or that was sore, or that hurt.
Yes.
You
weren't
you
rocked.
just get on with it.
Yeah. You mentioned you were married maybe 8 weeks ago or so. I was reading your wife couldn't come in and watch the fight. She was outside in the car. The glamour of that.
She was outside in the car with a dog. But I mean, look, it's you can completely understand that. I mean, the restrictions were there, and look, the IVA organised this before restrictions had lifted, or you were allowed crowds, and I think we were all happy that it was run well. It was run, a tight ship was there because it's the flagship tournament of the I suppose boxing in Ireland, and it had to be run well. It had to go well, and I think that they really did put on a good show. And they ran it correctly and made sure that everyone was careful and so you didn't mind that.
So you had that itch over the last 4 years. This must have been a really enjoyable experience. What's next?
Oh God, that I don't know. That's the $1 million question to say. I don't know. Look, I've had they have reached out and asked if I want to go to squad training. There are World Championships coming up at the end of the month. I think there's a training camp in England before that. But I suppose, as I say, priorities kind of change or life changes. So I am working now full time with KPMG. So I just need to see if it's a possibility that especially now with remote working and remote access, would it be possible? And if it was possible, it's obviously something I'd love to do. It would be fantastic to go back and compete in other World Championships. But I'll have to wait and see. What's possible with working conditions.
Come on, KPMG, come on, lads! If you're watching, don't be silly. Yeah. And so, did it? When you say the itch is there, is that for you, Darren, the itch of just competing and the joy of boxing, or did you feel you had unfinished business? Were you unhappy with a part of your career? Did you want to go and win something else for some reason?
Oh, sure, I'd love to win everything, but I mean, look, you see the McLaren report come out there in Rio. We know there's been corruption in boxing for my entire lifetime. There's been corruption in boxing, so there's probably a few medals that I could have or should have that, that I didn't get. But you can't kind of get caught up on that. I don't get me wrong. Obviously, you'd love to have the medals, and I would have done you a hell of a lot better, obviously, moving forward. But at the same time, I had a long, a good long career while I was competing. And I had great success as well. I'm very happy with what I've achieved. But yeah, I mean, from an age point of view, it just, I suppose I see some people saying, looking back and saying they'd never do it again, this type of stuff. I'd do it all again in a heartbeat. I just love that. I love the competition, the excitement, the buzz, and getting to challenge yourself, competing against the best in the world. It's fantastic. What more can you ask for?
Yeah.
So I suppose for me, there is that kind of itch there, and there'll always be that question or that kind of thought in the back of your head: could I still do it? Could I still beat them? Or compete with them, so I don't know. I just enjoyed it anyway.
Good. The McLaren report told us what we all know, really, unfortunately, about the sport. Do you feel you were wronged at an Olympic fight or World Championship fights, or when do you feel you may have been screwed over?
There's a few different occasions. European Games, I was probably I probably lost out there against the Ukrainian. I think he analysed it after, and I landed double the punches that he landed.
Wow. What stage? What stage was that?
For the medal quarterfinal.
Wow.
And again, to qualify for Rio, I boxed the other world bronze medalist, Azerbaijani. Again, same thing. I think we analysed after. I landed 54. He landed 26.
To qualify for Rio.
Yeah.
They're two pain. So that's an Olympic Games you're robbed of and a European medal potentially.
Yeah, but there's always going to be things like that. And look, it annoys you at the time, but I mean, I've seen it happen to so many others. I mean, we've seen it ourselves. Obviously, Michael Connon, but you go back further. You had Kenneth Egan in Beijing. There's loads of examples that you could use throughout the years, but you just can't get caught up in it. Just move on.
God, I didn't know that about the Rio qualifier. That's it. I mean, to miss out a second games, that is big.
Yeah. Look, it's disappointing. I think I've beaten medalists at 3 Olympics now. I think it's 3. I beat medalists from Beijing, obviously London and Rio. So it would have been fantastic to be able to say that you competed in 2 anyway. But anyway, I bet medalists at 3 games, maybe 4. I can't remember. Yeah.
Well, listen, congratulations again on national title number 8, age 36, after 4 years away from the ring. That's no mean feat. And I suspect a way will be found. Somehow listening to you, I suspect you might be at that camp and looking to World Championships one way or another. I just get that feeling, Darren. So if that turns out to be the case, very best of luck to you. Thanks for coming on the show tonight.
No problem. Thanks very much for having me, guys.
Off the ball on News Talk.
Clear Mobile has 99% 4G population coverage. So where are people going?
Out west with 4 bars and all. Dublin, outside of Dublin.
Longford, Waterford, all the Fords.
There you go. Great coverage with unlimited calls, texts and data for $14.99 a month. You clear? They are. Clear Mobile. Everything you need